Hey, what's up, everybody? Had a really good question from an athlete when I made a comment. He was doing some hard start VO2 max intervals. So, if you're not familiar with those, it's where you're going hard for 30 to 45 seconds at high VO2. I realize it's not VO2 max power. We'll say maximal aerobic power, but 125, 130% FTP. And we'll talk about that depends on your rider type, and then you're riding high threshold. And it was really interesting. His heart rate did not come up nearly high enough to where I wanted to see it. And so I said, hey, we might make these on the next time. He's got a rest week coming up, but on the next week, let's experiment with much harder start, a little bit longer, and then less time at high threshold. And I want to see what it was really weird that his heart rate didn't come up. I'm almost wondering if the heart rate monitor wasn't working correctly because it was pretty warm out that day. But either way, this is a good way to fiddle to make the workout better for him. And he sent me an email about a few things. And he said, hey, I was also curious what metrics you look to for improvements and for tweaking workouts. You mentioned heart rate as one after seeing that I didn't get it elevated enough in that past particular workout. And there's a lot of metrics out there, but some seem like merely quote unquote interesting data points rather than something you'd look at to measure progress. So it's a really good question. I think it really depends on the type of workout that we're talking about. So if it's a VO2 max one where we're looking to elevate the heart rate above 90% of heart rate max for purely increasing the amount of oxygenated blood getting pumped throughout the body, we want to see that if he's going super hard to do that, we want to make sure it actually gets elevated. Now, I also do believe, and this is my part of my coaching philosophy, that you need to be able to ride 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes at constant or undulating power, but putting out high watts, higher than doing a hard start and riding at high threshold. Me personally, I don't believe that just doing VO2 max workouts by heart rate is going to set people up for success in races. Part of that is mental, part of that is more muscular as opposed to the heart rate component. So in that workout, I'd be looking purely at a power number and saying, hey, how are you doing on the fourth interval with the power? Is it really falling off? Are you able to do all five, or are you able to do the whole set? Now, for another type of workout, let's say for an over under, I'd be looking at, obviously, are you able to do the overs and the unders at the specified percentages that we're looking for? But also, how are you doing later in the set? Is the whole set maybe too long for where you're at in your training? Is it too short? Maybe the overs are too hard, or maybe the unders are too low, making the overs too easy. When we're talking about rider type, moving away from VO2 max, but if you're a highly anaerobic gifted athlete, for over unders, a lot of times those might just be so easy for you because the over portion is naturally very easy and it's short. And it man, we could really go down a rabbit hole here. Because you're more anaerobic, you should be producing more energy through the glycolytic system. But if you still have a big aerobic engine, if you're like a Vanderpool, a Wout Van Aert, you might still be able to process that extra lactate that you're producing through the glycolytic system. So you got to tweak that. I have an athlete, Jay, who's over unders. We were like, man, you just destroy these. Like, are these even feel like a workout? We got to make these harder. But really, for him, when we were doing these to increase FTP, we actually slotted back towards some more constant power because he was feeling like he was missing some of that stain on the gas. And he's lives in an area where there are longer climbs that you can do for 8, 10, 12, 15 minutes. And if you feel like you're missing something in your armor or in your tool belt, that's what you need to speak up and tell your coach. So it was really good to hear that. And I actually, a month later, had the same experience where when I was trying to pin it on I want to say I went out for like a 15-minute effort. I think I podcasted about this in Florida, and my body was like waiting to go over and waiting to go under. It was really weird because I'd done probably too many over-unders. Tom and I got in a groove, and I was riding them well in North Carolina because that's naturally how these climbs are. They're undulating, and you they get very steep, and so you're smashing over that, and then you're riding just under threshold, and then you're kind of going over. And so anyways, you need to look at the athlete. These micro changes, to answer this guy's question, I really said, just ask yourself, how can I make this workout even better for him next time so that we are progressing? So do we need to make it harder? Do we need to make it longer? Do we need to repeat it? And then at the end of the day, at the same, to play total devil's advocate, we could say, ooh, this is cringe. Like, this is really getting in the weeds. I love power. I love how much better you can get from doing intervals and from doing the things that you need to do to eliminate the poor spots in your repertoire of being a cyclist. Like, don't have, if we broke up cycling into, like, if we were rating your endurance and your aerobic capacity and your anaerobic capacity and your ability to win a sprint and whatever, you don't want to be a 8, 10, 6, and then have a 2. You'd rather be you're especially, road racing, gravel racing, cross. There's a little bit more technical skill, so I don't want to add that in this mix, but you'd rather be like a 7, 9, 8, 7. You're very well rounded, and there's a lot of ways that you can win. So that's just my theory too. And in American racing, where a lot of, 65% of the people that listen to this podcast or on YouTube are from the States, our road racing is very beneficial. It's very beneficial to be a well-rounded athlete. And the more you listen to these podcasts from some of these absolutely phenomenal athletes that we have share their time and talent with us, they do a lot of different things, a variety. Maybe not a lot of, maybe saying a lot of different things is a little overstated. Sorry, I'm a little tired from this ride today. But so that make those changes in your workouts, and by doing that, I think you're doing one of the things that I'm a huge believer of, is having variety, so that you're not doing the same VO2 max workout, so that you're not doing the same threshold workouts, so that you're changing up your tempo rides. I mean, I think there is benefit from doing a 2x20 and a 4x10. And even just these little tweaks, not only from a freshness side, but we get really good at doing the same thing over and over again, and then we get really dull from it. So make your gains, move on, keep it, spice it up. And I thought this was a great question. Just want to share it. Good luck with your training. That's it. See ya.